Well, welcome everyone. We're delighted you can join us for this session in our series of public programs and also Stanford seminars on entrepreneurship in Asian high-tech industries. So please get your last comments into me by next Tuesday about this time. If you're going to be late, send me a note. We can work something out as long as I don't have to turn in the grades first. But we want to welcome all of our guests from all over. It's really great to see you. Today, I'm very excited that we can bring a presentation from Bangkok, Thailand, especially about the circular economy. And our speaker is eminently qualified not only as a practitioner, but also as an academic. So I've known Dr. Lerwen Liu for longer than either of us would probably care to confess. But she, in her current position, founded the STEAM platform in 2018. And this focuses on youth empowerment with convergent STEM technology, strategic communication skills, and entrepreneurship for the the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, the circular economy, and Industry 4.0. But Lerwen has 20 years of experience in global business development in strategic partnership, entrepreneurship, and marketing. Dr. Liu has been building bridges between industry and government and academia in regard to the problems to work out solutions to the problems that humanity faces in the world today. She's worked in both the developed and the developing world. She co-founded the Circular Economy Accelerator program inside the Knowledge Exchange for Innovation Center in Bangkok. She and I go way back to her days when she was more focused on nanotechnology. She has also co-founded a number of startup companies and mentored hundreds of youth leaders in Asia. She's organized major programs about the circular economy and about nanotechnology. She has taught at National University of Singapore and also King Mongkut University of Technology in Thonburi in Thailand. She is co-author of a number of books, and she is a review editor in Frontiers in Environment. Lerwen has her PhD in physics. She's an Australian citizen who is currently living in Bangkok. So, Lerwen, I'm going to start off by asking you, what do you mean by the circular economy?
I was just exactly thinking of this today, how I'm going to make it simple. Now, there are two ways to think about it. When if you're Buddhist, if you're familiar with Buddhists will talk about reincarnation. So you come back to life again and again and again. So in a sense, circular economy is like that. So you take material from earth, you process it, you make it into product. End of life, instead of throwing in on earth, you keep the material in the production loop. So that's one way to look at it. So you get the material or the product get reborn or reform again and again. Another way to look at it if it is organic, like our body is organic. When we die, we bury our body in the soil, and it will fertilize the tree. So you end there's the end of life, but it will give nutrient to a new life.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. It's a really good metaphor for understanding what this is about, especially because we have such problems with pollution and, plastics are a big problem. I'm kind of surprised to see that this is of interest in developing economies as well as in the developed world.
Yes, yeah. So this is developing economy is actually, I don't know if you know, I actually grew up in China until I was a teenager. I lived in a circular economy. There was literally zero waste when I was a kid. So we had a circular economy in the developing country. And at that time, that was in the 70s and 80s, China was very poor, or poor in the sense that, I have only 2 pairs of shoes. I mean, in the material sense, I didn't have a lot of material ownership in that context. So it's actually a very vibrant development right now in the developing world. And also the way when I communicate circular economy to the world about Thailand, we actually go back to the Thai tradition also. So when we interview the practitioners, policymakers, industry actors, we try to extract that authenticity in the practice of circular economy. It's actually deeply integrated with their culture. Of course, Western technology has given us a lot of material to consume, and we had the tendency to forget our roots and our origin. So I also try to revive that the traditional values, the traditional practice, to empower people that this is really possible. We can all do it. Our grandparents could do it. We can do it.
Okay. So, we can continue this kind of dialogue. I think you've got a sort of some prepared remarks first. Why don't I let you give your prepared remarks so that you can give the kind of whole picture that you want to give, and then we'll talk some more.
So since I don't know a lot of you, I gave a talk a long time ago, Richard, on nanotechnology in China, etc. I think at that time I could have a face-to-face interaction with all of you, and I can ask questions and I get to know you. But here I assume that this is something that everyone would ask, why should I care and why now? So I wanted to give you a context of why suddenly everyone's talking about circular economy, even though in the 80s, when I was a kid, I lived in a circular economy. So usually when I go to a supermarket, I actually, literally, I do ask questions. This is really, it really came to my head. Where is this from? And how did it come here, this product? Was it made of? I always look at the label, the ingredients, composition, and how was it produced? So these are the questions often when I consume, the more I'm involved in circular economy, the more I care about these questions and try to understand them and try to lower my own carbon footprint and try to go zero waste, knowing these answers. Now, I wanted to, since in America, now I know you started producing a lot of stuff in America now, made in USA. But I think for a long time, I remember coming to shop in the US, in malls and all these shops and things. And I see a lot of things are made in China and elsewhere. So then for me, I'm very curious. So how do American companies manage their global supply chain? Really to answer the questions that I asked earlier. And let me just give you a generic run through on how global supply chain affects our economy and why we are talking about circular economy really now, especially since 2018. So just this is pretty standard, but let me just take an example of cotton. So we wear, I think a lot of us like cotton t-shirts. So let's say, look at your cotton t-shirt, and the first thing is cotton, obviously, where do we grow cotton? And a lot of, if you just Google where cotton growth countries. So the top countries, the 2 top countries, India, China, right? So right there, the half of the population. And then USA, you go cotton as well, is I think top, either 2nd or 3rd, and Brazil. So these are grown there. Now from cotton, we need to make clothes. Let's follow the steps, huh? You get cotton fiber, then you spin into yarn. So who make yarn? Again, China, India, and then Asia makes some, America makes some as well. But really, the most of the production is happening here. And then from yarn, you make fabric. So who make those fabric? Again, same here, making in this part of the world, in the Asia area. So from fabric, then you need to start making clothes. Now, there are different brands of clothes. And in America, there are a lot of famous brands in America, a lot of famous brands in Europe and Australia. And so what usually a lot of big brands, Western, I call it Western world, the developed world, design those products and give the design to China and other part of Asia and produce the clothes. And then it gets shipped to the rest of the world for consumption. Now, what am I? Oh, something didn't work. My shipment, my shipment didn't work.
You transitioned
what's
too
happened
quick.
is what happened to my ship, my big ship.
But while you're working on
I supposed to have a ship,
Lerwen,
ship all your stuff out of China to America, and you consume it, and then you ship back the waste to China. So what happened for about 20 years? We are so used to shipping our waste, our used product to China for recycling or for landfill or whatever they do with it. We don't know, right? But then 2018 in January, everything changed. China enacted the China National Store Policy. Then they say no to your waste, unfortunately. So now it's all of a sudden, I know in Australia, suddenly we got so much waste, we didn't know how to put it because we didn't have the capacity to process the waste. And so a lot of our waste has gone to landfill. Now, of course, as a consumer, I assume we have a recycle bin in every household, we pay for it. So we throw all our stuff to the recycle bin, including some of the used clothes and shoes, and we assume it's recycled, but it was a lie. So it wasn't recycled, it went to landfill because China didn't take our waste anymore. So that really has become a crisis, for a lot of countries. Now we start thinking, how can we close our own loop within our own country and with our own region? So really localizing the economy in this way. So that's how we started the whole discussion on circular economy. Every country in the world now is designing that economy and needing help. And so this basically is a global movement now. And a lot of people, there are countries which are more familiar with this. There are countries who are less. And so we need a global cooperation, really. So the global supply chain now require global collaboration, cooperation to create a global circular economy through localizing your own economy at the same time. So shall we go to the what part? Should I run through this?
No, I
process
think that's a good point, because what you're saying actually overlaps with a course that I co-taught last quarter about looking at, what kind of measurement of performance are you going to put on an economy, where you can't just look at simple growth in terms of, how much GDP grows. You really have to look at sustainability, and you have to look at inclusiveness and other kinds of factors. And it's interesting that to localize this kind of, circle, you really have to collaborate globally. Would you elaborate just a little more on how global collaboration will help local circular economies grow?
This is a great question. Recently I ran one event at the end of the project that the government funded us on the Accelerator. It's called Circular Economy Leadership and Partnership. And when I look at the policy, I always look at policies to start, actually, because policy really is one of the really key drivers for accelerating this transition. So now European Union, I think in terms of policy, is probably the most advanced in the world. And so they have already built up the so-called circular economy monitor framework. And also, so there's a website for that, so you can actually look at every member country in EU, what each country, how they practice circularity, how much stuff that they recycle, what material, the categories of material, etc. They also have built these multi-stakeholder platform to support partnership among their member countries. So with that, I invited the European Union colleagues to share their practice in policy, how they build their policy, how we could collaborate with them. So policy aspect, it really require international collaboration because you don't have to start from scratch. For example, the EPR, the Extended Producer Responsibility, initially started in Sweden in the 90s. And that has helped very much on the reuse and recycle of products. So I managed to get the guy who invented that policy, Thomas, to share how he invented the policy and how this policy been implemented in Sweden and elsewhere, and his vision for the future. So from policy standpoint, it's really important. And I got different countries to share: China, India, Korea, Netherlands, and Finland. So a lot of leading countries in policy to share their practice to support our policymakers in Thailand to build better policy for Thailand, and on regulations, on the framework, and also how to execute and to really create impact. So that's one. And then you go down to the other side, business model. And there are a lot of businesses is making transition, but what we found, who's leading the business is SMEs on the ground. So we've talked a lot of SMEs on the ground, family business really, and generations of 3 generations, for example, in textile. I'm so showing this slide here. In the textile sector, we did a case study, a really interesting business. It's a 3-generation textile company started by grandparents 50 years ago. The grandparents actually started collecting textile waste and export them to other countries for recycling. And over the years, over the 3 generations, they move up the value chain. Instead of exporting the waste for someone else to process them, they process them gradually. The 2nd generation, now the 3rd generation, they move up further in the value chain. Now they have their own brand of clothing made from the waste fiber that they recycle from production waste, pre-consumption waste, and post-consumption waste. So we just find, and the young generation who's in the 2 brothers in their 30s, they are in their 30s, they're really passionate about closing the loop. They are and it's also very ambitious. They want to create ASEAN textile recycling hub. And they're really doing it in a very efficient and fast way. And yeah, they want to also create a global impact through their practice as well. So that's
great. Those are great examples. First, about the policy kind of discussions and learning best practices at the policy level. But down here at the business model, we've got a question from Jorge that I think is good to ask at this point. How do you incentivize this development of the short path economy? So, for example, here was this family business that needed to learn how to develop recycling for clothing.
Yes.
It costs money to start anything new. How did you convince them that this was a net positive kind of thing to do in business?
So this is why private sector can't work alone. You need public-private partnership. Private sector, if I'm a startup, if I want to just textile, let's move to food, which is easy for all of us. So if I want to compost, say I run a restaurant, I want to go 0 waste for my organic waste, and all my kitchen scraps and food waste. And I don't have a big piece of a farm where I can bury my organic waste so they can naturally decompose. So I need a machine, and this machine can be just a system that is enclosed, can even produce biogas, but you still have to. You can't build it yourself. If you can, but it takes time. So you buy it. It costs money, and how do I recover that cost? So, and that need policy to come in. So if government will give me either incentive to pay for the machine, or to penalize people produce waste. So again, it's some sort of incentive. So there are different kind of incentive to a carrot and a stick.
Yep.
And of course, long run from the business standpoint. So if I can brand my restaurant a zero waste restaurant, and I can attract a lot of customers who care about the planet, so it's good for my business. So if my business is good, my business can pay that off, right? So it is about how to you got to make that investment if you can afford to, but if you can't afford that, and there's another business model which is interesting. You don't have to pay upfront. You rent. You pay for your usage. So this is exactly what happened to the solar energy sector, right? So I can't afford spending tens of thousands of dollars to own that solar panel, but you don't need to own it. You can rent it, or you don't even need to rent it. You pay for your electricity bill. So there are a lot of businesses here. I'm sure Tesla's doing, was it Solar City, the Elon Musk company?
Yeah, now
so
it's part of Tesla again.
They call it Tesla, yeah. So they put solar panel on your rooftop, right? And you pay them for the energy you use and at a discounted price. So you're incentivized to do that. So there are a lot of ways to go about, and this is really why this whole circular economy is very exciting. Presents really a lot of exciting opportunities for entrepreneurs to make a difference. I mean, you can invent stuff. You can, and again, why do you have to own things, right? Ownership in the past, I don't know which generation our audience are in, but I think at least my parents' generation is all about ownership, right? You own your car, you own your house, you own everything. But what if you don't have to own it? Because you only need to use it, right? It's function. You need to function only. So again, think about what we really need, why, and address the really fundamental need of consumer, and you design product accordingly. So we call it service.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Absolutely wonderful comments. Why don't I let you go ahead?
Oh, okay, so I can go. Well, this is really to recap what I said earlier. I just want to show you a couple of case studies in Thailand. The way we analyze, we had a project with the Thai government for 6 months to map the ecosystem of circular economy in Thailand. And which I think, I think the Thai government, I must say, they're pretty visionary. I mean, they really wanted to design a more efficient way of transitioning, to help transitioning towards circular economy. So the policymaker willing to ask private sector to actually help them looking at, where are we now? To look at where are we now, and what's everyone else is doing, and how can we do it in such a way that we could be more efficient, and also have a global partnership to help us to accelerate so we can become the leader in the region. So that's leadership from the government standpoint. And so we just went on ground. Our approach is always staying on the ground, to go site visits. We visited this factory, SC Grand, for example, that textile factory that I talked about. It was just really an overwhelming experience when we saw the amount of waste this company is capable of recycling, and interview or put them on camera. So another unique thing that we do, different from a lot of market research people, is that we put people on camera because we want to show leadership. Then we put them, we edit a video and we put them on the YouTube, to allow not only to share our experience on the ground. So rather than writing things down, we put visual. So you can actually watch our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and key in KMUTT STEAM. So you can watch our channel. So we map the whole, I call it, life cycle of textile. And there are really three ways, three sources to produce textile. One is renewable source, like cotton and silk, or this wool, or this organic base, right? The other one is non-renewable polyester, nylon, from oil and gas. And the third one is waste. Sorry, this has to move up a little. Waste. So circular economy is really to try to reduce this two and use more waste. So that, again, opportunity, right? I'm an entrepreneur, always see opportunities. So how can we get there's so much waste already out there and it's not being recycled. In fact, if you look at the numbers, only about 12% textile material is being recycled. So can you imagine the opportunity ahead? And also the way to combat climate change, to reduce all this land use, water, right, and reduce chemical consumption, and reduce oil and gas consumption. So everything is about reduce and reduce when you use more, when you recycle more, right? And then we mapped the different company. Xchange, I talked about it, I mentioned it earlier. And we have also companies called Molu that deals with the excess fabric. Excess fabric means you typically, if you say you need to produce only 1,000 t-shirts, you always extra fabric, which usually become waste and non-use. So they develop a digital platform to trade these waste and also make their own branded clothes as well. And so that we call it digital platform for e-waste on the e-commerce platform. And we also, this is a Hong Kong retailer. This is actually, they're very famous now. If you Google them, there's a lot of coverage on them. So Hong Kong Research Institute of Textile and Apparel. I put them here because now they're partnering with Xchange. So I make an introduction to them. So I sort of facilitate that partnership. So they have a lot of cutting edge technologies that they can help Xchange to be more efficient. And to be the regional leader faster. So it's a garment to garment technology. They have a automated system that allow you to see your own used t-shirt and turn into a brand new t-shirt. That type of system. Yeah, it's all Industry 4.0 technology. So this is really a sort of. There are more examples here, but I just wanted to share with you. And along this whole life cycle or value chain, there are different players in Thailand. Pretty much Thailand can close their own loop, but we need to accelerate all these companies to help them grow, so that they can recycle more of the waste to really divert the waste from landfill and to utilize, adding value to our waste. So that's textile. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably interested in plastic. Should I go into plastic a little bit?
Sure, I think that's important, especially you see, all of the plastic in the lakes and rivers and ocean quite a lot on TV commercials here now.
Yeah. So now we see plastic waste everywhere. Actually, when I moved here, this is the first developing world I have ever lived. Well, except China, where I grew up as a teenager. At that time there was no waste, so there was no plastic. And now here you see the canals, the river, the beach. It's full of plastic. Right? This is it's horrifying, but it's getting better. But when I first came here, it was really horrifying. In Indonesia, same thing. A lot of all these places. Now you wonder where they come from, and why are we not recycling them enough? Why don't we keep it out of the landfill? And it's very complicated. It's complicated. So first, product design. So if you, I think you guys like drinking bottled water, yeah? Look at how many kinds of plastic, anybody, how many kinds of plastic are there in your water bottle?
Including the lid.
Yes. Label, right? Label. At least three kinds, yeah? 3 kinds.
Yeah.
So now, if you melt these 3 type of plastic together, what are you going to do? What kind of product you can make? It's lots of impurity, and you can make something really we call downcycle. To do recycling and upcycling, you really need clean material. So typically in Asia, we have this kind of bottle as well. It's very non-clean, yeah. And then you have to remove the lid and remove the label. And sometimes this label is not even plastic, they're paper, right? All kinds of mixture of stuff, right? The way we design our product. So every time when you go to a supermarket, you start paying attention on labeling and material. You have to remove it and you have to clean them before you can recycle them. So this whole process requires energy, people. Like in Thailand, people, they use people, and in Europe they use machines, all kinds of high-tech machines to remove them. And the whole removal process could be also can have environmental impact as well, because you need could use chemicals, maybe, and high temperature, energy. Then you look at the entire process. You collect, you separate, you sort, you shred, melt, then you start making product. And so this is actually a local, again, family business with 100 people doing exactly that. So they designed these cool products that all plastic based, all using recycled plastic. So they try to recycle as much as possible, but the capacity is not huge, right? It's still only 100 people company. So how do we scale? And so this, again, we need, they're fundraising right now. They just spin off a company called Surplus, try to scale this whole capacity of collection, segregation, and make a lot of these recycled plastic and distribute them to people who would like to make any product you name it, like furnitures, neo packaging, and anything that could be made out of plastic, for example. So another thing that I find it really interesting in Thailand is the community-driven circular economy. And this is really important because that's because we all live in a community. I'm living in a condo, a pretty big condo, 30 years old condo. Just in my community recently, the lead, the head of the management, strata management, started the whole eco project, they call it. So they start composting all the food waste and organic waste in our community and start expanding the community garden. So, and also start segregating garbage. And there's a lot of these community activities going on in Thailand right now. So you can actually, with time, in the last year, I actually see really accelerated change that despite of COVID, and there are more and more community involved in cleaning up and greening their own condo and the neighborhood. So that's something I really find it very inspiring. This is actually my.
So how, Lerwen, how did that awareness come into the community? What do you think were the key factors that led people to be more aware?
So I go again. I come back to the Thailand context. My experience of working in Thailand is that there's a very strong peer-to-peer influence, when especially among young people, and now in this community, a lot of women involved and men as well. But I find that people, when you see someone else is doing something good for the community, and it's not difficult to get people to follow you. That's what I found. So I'm also in the community of this whole, we have a sort of, although I was away for 2 months, I'm connected with them electronically. So I see the growth of this whole community and people getting involved. We have a Line group that's similar to WhatsApp, but they use Line in Thailand. So more and more people join this group, and every weekend we see more and more people involved in composting, community garden, and segregating garbage. So I really see it's a very community-driven society in a way in this country. So that's something. It's very positive for circular economy. This is why I feel that this type of culture, really a Thai culture, is really very positive for Thailand to become leader in the region.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. We've got some, discussion going on in chat, but I want to let you go on a little bit further with your comments. I'm especially interested, in moving on and seeing what you're doing with your programs, the STEAM platform, and also the Accelerator for the circular economy.
Okay, so this is a lot of stuff that we analyzed what Thailand's doing. So this is part of our Accelerator program, but I just want to go straight to this. How we do it and where we are now. We're very young. We're only 6 months old, and we just finished the mapping for the government, and we make recommendations. And we launched the Circular Economy Leadership and Partnership Summit. And that initiative will carry on. We are creating a knowledge hub. In fact, I can need your help in the audience. I'm putting together my next book in collaboration with Spring and Nature to feature leadership practices around the world. It's like a encyclopedia for circular economy. So it's under the category of major reference works of Spring and Nature. It will be live. And so I'm actually searching for a section editor in North America. So we have editors from all over the world, co-editors, and really feature peer review practices. So you can come to our hub and not just random case studies. It really needs to be very validated and reviewed by our experts in circular economy, and you can share them. And it's a great case study for business school as well. And so that's something we're doing now. And now to accelerate circular economy, we talked about policy. We haven't talked about technology. We talked about business model, but technology is critical, especially digital technology and nanotechnology, biotechnology. So technology innovation is very important. How you, for example, upcycle waste into value-added products. So that really need innovation in technology. And in our event, we invited two speakers, one from Australia, in University of New South Wales, Professor Bina. She invented this high temperature technology to mix, for example, glass with textile and plastic to create very beautiful ceramics for high-end property builders, property developers, as an example. And Hong Kong RITA, the Research Institute of Textile and Apparel, they focus on automation, adopting Industry 4.0 to make recycling technology more efficient and greener. And financing. Financing is really, really critical now. I see a big trend now in ESG funds and the ESG fund and environmental social governance funds. But the financial community still have a lot to catch up on, like what is circular economy, how we can do it, what are the mechanisms, how can we work with public sector as well, because public sector is also investing, and how can private and public sector work together and to accelerate that. So we're still learning. We're all learning at the moment. This is why sharing knowledge is really critical at this phase. So we address all this. We work with different partners in Thailand and outside. This is why our event was really a kickoff to bring everyone together from all around the world. We did not have North American speakers at our event. That's why this is really the missing part in our network right now. So thank you, Richard and Kimberly, for giving us the opportunity to communicate. And
yeah, we've got some things that I want to say for the off the record discussion, but we'll talk more about at the end of the formal program, because there are some things, it's getting people together so that they know what's going on in different places. Yes. That's at the very basic level. Yes. One of the things about this that I think is a real challenge is that people see the macro problem to some extent, but there's a lot of aspects about the economic impact of waste and so forth that people don't see. And especially it takes new technologies to do things like recognize microplastics in the ocean. Yes. So, it's a big economic problem. And then you take it down to the level of daily life and yes. business models for individual businesses. And every entrepreneur, every business owner in the world wants to spend as little as possible to make as much profit as possible. So they have to really understand the economics of what they're doing in a different way. Yes. I think this is a huge challenge, but it's wonderful to see what you're doing there to kind of map it out for the government and also get people more aware. That's the very basic.
Yes. Yeah, there's so much to do. There is so much to do. First, we have to clean up our planet, like the microplastic, for example. So much toxic waste out there in our ecosystem. And then, of course, at the same time, we have to stop all these toxic substances getting emitted in the air, released in the land and ocean, right? So it's very challenging, cleaning it up and stopping all these unsustainable waste management, I call them. And also we have to rethink how we produce product and how we consume everything. So for producer and consumer, we all have to rethink and we cannot do business as usual. For example, how can we design a phone? Like we all use phones and all this electronic gadget, so that it can be easier to refurbish, easier to remanufacture. And then if you can't do any of this, then you have to recycle or recover. So this is now products are designed is not in such a way that it's to make it difficult. So this is again complete change in how we design our product, because we want people to buy more and more and just throw, right? So this is why the whole economy has to change. The whole mindset of production has to change and how we consume. So then again, then it's very hopeful, because then you have the entire emerging. So once you do that, then you have the emerging businesses on refurbishing, right? Refurbishing business and remanufacture business. And yeah, this is just a lot of opportunity ahead. When you have an economic framework change, practice presents enormous opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Okay. Yeah, great. Well, why don't you keep going?
Yeah. So infrastructure ecosystem is really critical for SMEs and for startups. Without the infrastructure, for example, when like voice collection, for example, right? And I don't know in the US how good it is. In Thailand, a lot of places still have only one bin. And so everyone just chuck everything in the bin. And there's a cleaning lady in the building. She will sort those garbage into parts that she can sell to recyclers, and the rest goes to landfill. So that waste management infrastructure needs to be in place. And also in terms of recycling now, because our recycling rate is so low, we don't have the machines to, for example, there's so much plastic out there, there's simply not enough machines to deal with it, to recycle them. So we need to invest in these infrastructures, right? Again, it's a business investment. So you will see a lot of chemical companies in Thailand, SCG, PTT, and this really very, very huge chemical companies are starting to invest and to create joint ventures with Western companies to scale up their recycling and capacity. So this is a big, it's all happening now. But it's also, the progress is not smooth. There's a lot of barriers in regulations and current outdated laws. So there's a lot of policy in terms of legislation, policy, regulation that needs to change as well to provide a conducive environment for circular economy. And so again, it really needs a new ecosystem to support the new economy. So allow startups and SMEs and large company to change or to create new businesses and to change the businesses. So that's something that we are working with the government and also local community on that. So that's how we sort of map the ecosystem. You have policy, regulation, industry practices, community platforms, and also research, innovation, and education. Education is really important. This is why, you know, I got the first book out. This serves as a textbook. Now we need not the skilled workforce, because we talk about economy is different from the previous economy. Then we really need all the actors in the ecosystem need to be educated. Now, how to do that? How do you make people to change their mind? It takes time. It needs a proper methodology. So that's really critical for educators to come in and play a very important role to drive this. This is really one of the very key accelerating factors as well, education. So when policymakers are making policy, if they're not educated properly, then they will make the wrong policy, right? For industry executives, same thing, right? Not just to satisfy the shareholders, right? But at the same time, the shareholders could change too. If you educate the shareholder will have a different priority, and they will support you to practice more sustainable business. So we're all here together, and so if we all have the align our goals and move in the same direction, then we'll get there faster. So let's see. So yeah, these are some key findings. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot going on. I just a few key findings about the whole ecosystem in Thailand. This is a bit of sort of executive summary for our study, from our study. So like I said earlier, the SME driven, new generation foreign educated, and closing the loop in all these sectors: textile, plastic, packaging, hospitality, and building. So next time when you guys come to Bangkok, I will know which hotel to recommend that practice circularity in ecotourism, for example. So we work with those guys. Community eco waste management.
And you see, that hits the business side.
Yes.
I do think that, it's important for people to see this and for people to talk about what they care about in terms of how they spend their money and how they, live their lives.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. Yeah. Actually, there's not a really strong element about Thailand is the social aspect. Now, if you watch one of my videos on Dairy Home is the first and only organic dairy producer and processor, and the market share is only 1% of the entire dairy supply. Yogurt is 4%, but milk is 1% only. But I love that that sentence that he shared with us during the interview. He said, "I don't want Dairy Home to be bigger and bigger, but I want more organic farmers, because in that way you scale, but not scaling yourself. You're not taking the profit yourself, but you empower more people to practice sustainability and sustainable business." That I find it amazing. So I really emphasize that in the video, and I have that in our upcoming documentary of Thailand circular economy leadership as well. So that is a complete different business model from the obsession with growth, and so different kind of growth, and also always taking care of your community. Sustainable growth, right? So when you take care of the community will take care of the environment, because they don't want to live in a dirty environment, right? But at the same time, when the environment is healthy, when communities are happy and productive, you have a good economic impact at the same time, sustainable economic impact. So this is really the essence of sustainability. This is why we picked all these amazing leadership practice, I call them, and to share. I think this practice is scalable in the sense that everyone can do. Yeah. So and of course, I think similar to the West, a lot of big corps are setting their targets: zero waste to landfill, carbon neutral, but again, where do you start, right? Where are we now? Always start with a baseline. How much waste we generate? How do we deal with our waste? And so these are the things are going on in Thailand right now with big corp. They go to the community to empower the community, and also it looks good in CSR in any case, and create joint ventures for scaling up recycling capacity. I mentioned that earlier. And technology scouting. So if you guys have good technology, they're very hungry for technology, okay? So we love to work with you. And another thing that I think Thailand's really uniquely positioned in ASEAN is that the Thai government and academic and industry have been working together in promoting sustainable consumption and production. So it has formed this network connecting with the Business Council, the Thailand Business Council, the Thai Federation of Thai Industry, and the government and the research institution. And as a result of that, for over the last more than, I think, 10, 20 years of practice, they have built a very unique life cycle inventory database. So now when you do life cycle assessment, when you do carbon footprint, any sort of circular economy monitoring, you need this database. And Thailand is the only place you can find. So, and this is managed by the government, so you can have access to it. So this is really important in terms of data, because you need data for doing a lot of things. And the leadership of the Thai government as well. So yeah, so that's sort of, I think, I have a lot going on, but you guys, I think
So I got a couple of
dialogue.
questions to follow up. First of all, did the military coup in Thailand a few years ago change the way the Thai government is approaching this, or is that relatively stable throughout?
Did you guys read the news? Follow Bangkok Post.
Well, okay. Yeah, I'm not talking about the social stuff that may be happening or whatever, but in terms of support for the kind of programs that you're doing, you're obviously still getting support.
Yes. Yeah, the government is very supportive. Yeah, actually, it's kind of decoupled, the regime and what's going on in innovation and
okay. Well, that's been my impression in Thailand too.
Yeah.
You may know that I'm an advisor to TISTR, right? One of the National Research Institute, and you almost couldn't tell there was a regime change.
Yes. Oh, yes.
The point that the sort of key point here is, how do you read the people you're trying to influence? So that, because if you push too hard, you either sound like you're preaching instead of really coming up with practical solutions.
Yes.
Or worse, you sound like a threat. You sound like someone who is against all of big industry or whatever. How do you handle that communications problem?
This is an excellent question. When I was promoting nanotechnology, it's not easy because it's a new technology, and it's when you say you try to convince company to change their material, say to use carbon nanotube or graphene, and you show them, okay, here's a product, if you put a few percent of carbon nanotube or graphene, it's going to be stronger and higher performance. It's very hard to sell sometimes, most of the time, because you have to change your business completely or change your production process. Now, when I promote circular economy, I find it actually easier. Maybe there are a few factors there. One is that actually people do care. It's surprising. It's really surprising, and there are so many people care about the climate, care about the environment. It's overwhelming. Like, I find it, nanotechnology is too difficult for people, but circular economy, climate change, environmental sustainability is much easier to find people, like-minded people, and also to communicate this circular economy or sustainability is also easier because it really is very personal. And I always go into the personal aspect, like how can we, it's each individual, we are consumers, so we can actually reduce, there are things that we don't need, we don't have to buy it, we don't have to eat that much, because then otherwise we're not healthy. So eating less and better is actually better for health. So from the health standpoint, and then at the same time you conserve more resources, so less waste. So in that case, it's actually easier for us to practice on a personal level. From the company level, from production level, business level is a little harder. But now you have the regulations coming in, and the whole big trend on, for example, the Thailand Stock Exchange, for example, has made sustainability reporting compulsory already since 2018. And this year they started ESG reporting, voluntary, but next year they will make it compulsory. So now there's a motivation for businesses to change because of the regulations. And it makes it, the regulations, and of course then you talk about enforcement, right? So this involves regulation, how to enforce it. So the enforcement is getting better, because now you have people monitoring, you have community monitoring it, the community's voice is louder and louder now. And now you have also technology, right, to monitor IoT and data and analytics. So you get, we're getting better with people more aware, community support, and technology innovation.
Yeah, there was another keyword that was in your bio a number of times, and that's youth empowerment.
Yes.
What kind of things are you doing to sort of empower youth in this regard?
Yeah, so maybe I'll go to the. So this is really my journey. The youth empowerment, it is my journey in Thailand. When I first came here back in 2017, now I was in Singapore for 12 years. It was not difficult for me to run a class and to get feedback, to make them work hard and to motivate them. But initially, when I came here, it's a completely different culture here, and Thai culture and Singapore culture are completely, in a way, it's the opposite, because the Singapore is very competitive. Right? Singapore is always government, businesses always talk about competitiveness. How can we survive because we have no resources, and we have to do everything in the most efficient way and be competitive. Well, Thailand is really a very lucky country in the sense that it's blessed with sunshine, beaches, natural resources, lots of land. My banana in the garden, it just grow like crazy with the rain and sun. So it's so easy to just survive, right? I mean, it's because of resources. Now, and also the Thai parents are very protective of their children. So the children, and they're very close to the families are very close. Those children live with their family forever until they get married. Even after they get married, they still live next to each other. So it's a very strong bonded family and by culture. So in that sense, each individual already very secure. So they don't have to go out and take risk and fight, and be competitive. So with that context, it took me a while to learn this. Okay, now I can share that, but initially I didn't know. So I had a lot of trouble with students, young people who are less motivated and less competitive in the mindset. But then the good side, though, I find them very talented at the same time, very creative. Like all this, the animation you saw, all created by my students. They're undergraduate students. They're very talented. They're very creative, artistic. They're great designers, and they also do great R&D. But then, because of language problem, as you know, Singapore speaks English. Everyone speaks English, and here they speak Thai. So it's really that's all this good stuff. They don't know how to communicate. So I thought, now if I could help them communicate better. And then at the same time, if you don't communicate, then you're less confident. So if I can help them communicate better, then they're more confident. And they're more confident, they can be more motivated, and they can, connect with the world better. And then that will have a positive feedback loop, get them then become more competitive. So that worked. So I started this STEAM program back in 2018. The first initiative that I started is to train 5 teams of 4th-year undergraduate who had completed their 4th-year project, who have come up with an innovative product to go for a technology competition in Hong Kong. So that was an exciting opportunity for all those students. We had a lot of people who wanted to compete. So we had more than 30 projects submitted. We selected 5, and we took 5 to Hong Kong. So, and within 1 month, so you can see the videos online also. This is all available on our YouTube channel, how they present. So within 1 month, we literally transformed these students who hardly spoke much English in the beginning. And also the way they communicate their technical product, technology, innovation was very technical, highly technical, very difficult to understand. So completely turned around. So as a result of that, they're much more motivated, and they are confident, And then I started to scale more. So we started having an internship program funded by the university. So we pay, our internship program is actually a paid intern. So our students get paid to get trained and to also to get to present their innovation to ADB. We participated in the Asia Clean Energy Forum in Asia Development Bank in Manila. So I took our young people, our young students and faculty members to participate in a global event. So not only just for student competition, but also going to global event, present their innovation to highly professionals and ADB executives. So that sort of, again, getting more exposure and building confidence and also putting their research in perspective. So that sort of further showcase their leadership. So that's how I sort of get them to start feeling that anything is possible and they can be a leader in the world. So we went to Singapore, and so I took my students to a lot of different places in the region, and they realized when they interact with the Singaporean students and peers, they realize that they are not worse than Singaporeans. They can be better. So that is enormous confidence boost for these young students. And yeah.
Okay, so the other side, though, if you're empowering youth, especially with regard to entrepreneurship, you need investors. Are you
Yes.
seeing much interest in impact investing in the domestic kind of ecosystem, or is it mostly foreign VCs who are more interested in ESG and impact investing?
Actually, this is a combination of both domestic and international, especially in the context of circular economy. As you probably know, a lot of people really care about plastic waste. So we are partnering with TIN, the incubator network. It's actually, TIN has a US root. The Second Muse is actually a US company. And Second Muse partners with the circular capital and to form this initiative called the Incubation Network. And we're partnering with them to support local incubators and accelerators like us, and to support local entrepreneurs as well. So that's sort of from outside. The inside, internally, there are a lot of corporate ventures now, very, very active corporate ventures, PTT, SCG, all these big companies, Thai Oil, having their corporate ventures. They are looking at how, or CP as well, which is a very, very big food company. And they are also interested in supporting youth in Thailand, youth entrepreneurship. But they're still learning more about Thailand innovations, though, because a lot of the big corps in Thailand had a sort of tradition of investing outside of Thailand. You probably know, like CP has a huge donation to Harvard, for example. But now they started to look inside. I think we make them looking inside. We work with these guys to steer their attention. Hey, look here. Over here, there's a lot going on. So we try to change also the mindset of the local industries as well, because often, again, go back to the confidence, right? In the past, Thai businesses, especially these investors, assume that Thailand has. If they look for innovation, they should go to Singapore and USA, Israel. But I think we're changing that mindset by showing them.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So one of the points about this kind of match, right? You've got to have the young people who want to change the world, and you've got to have the people who are willing to help support them change the world, investors, as well as government regulations and so forth.
Yes.
But to have young people taking the entrepreneurship solution to this problem means that they have to give ideas to investors and potential customers that make good sense in terms of my lifestyle, in terms of my pocketbook and everything else. So there have to, what do you see as the good areas for kind of circular economy related entrepreneurship in Thailand, or even more broadly in Southeast Asia?
This is a very complicated question also, well, complicated answer, because there are different levels of opportunities. So for short term and longer term, and also some area needs less resources or less investment, some areas need more. For example, now in a lot, everyone is looking at food waste and plastic, right? So packaging, food and packaging. These two area is like low hanging fruit. For like one
So it's
startup.
getting kind of crowded.
Sorry.
It's getting a little crowded.
Yes,
Lots, yeah.
But crowded at the same time also it's there's an emerging opportunity. Let me just tell you what two cases that we are helping at the moment. One is a startup, it's a social enterprise called Bangkok Rooftop Farm. So started, initiated by this very passionate social entrepreneur, Parina, her name. Again, this is all on our YouTube channel. We have interviewed all these leaders. And so she worked with a number of local, they call it agripreneurs, agripreneur, who are passionate about food waste, taking food waste to zero waste. And to build and convince the building owner, all these tall buildings, high rise and low rise building, to allow them to use the rooftop and also help them deal with their food waste and to grow organic salad on the rooftop using food waste compost as fertilizer. So they're really creating traction. So they've got government funding, okay, and they've got some angel investment. And now they're expanding to a number of different rooftops in downtown Bangkok. So this is something that it doesn't come easy. She's been trying that she started probably 5 years ago talking to the building owner. And the building owner fortunately also care about zero waste. So you really have to find like the like-minded people to start. Somebody care about cleaning up their own building, and then you have this passionate social entrepreneur to drive it, and then you have a team of young people working together to create this vibrant farm, and they're selling their organic salad to the community, in Bangkok. I personally, bought salad from them, and of course, there's a lot to do if they want to scale this in terms of developing a digital platform. So like residents in the Bangkok downtown can either come and pick up their own salad or they deliver the salad. So there's a lot going on there. And now another technopreneur is somebody who's built a food composting system, and now he's ready to provide his system. For example, like he's the first system that he has managed to sell to is Bangkok Phuket government in a market where in Asia there's wet market. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with wet markets. Wet markets, you get fresh vegetables and seafood and meat, everything, right? And there's a lot of food waste in the market. So in the past, what do? You dump them to landfill. Now, Phuket is really very progressive because Phuket wants to promote ecotourism. So they want to do the pilot, and they order a 500 kilogram capacity system to compost 24 hours. This is a accelerated composting, 24 hours, made from local, some sort of a special local microbe, and the byproduct is dry fertilizer. And so of course this is they are trying to bootstrap the sales. They are looking for funding to scale, but right now they're getting revenue to survive. And so we're also trying to build the whole supply chain of food circularity. So the Bangkok rooftop farm, the composter, hotels, and so build a whole ecosystem. So to really support the zero waste practice in Bangkok.
Okay, thanks. We've got a question from Etan Ayalon. Is the Thai government making circular economy practice part of the Thailand 4.0 infrastructure investment project to transition from manufacturing high tech? Are you seeing that in these new initiatives?
Now Thailand has different initiatives. There's a big agenda now is driving by the Office of the Prime Minister. It's called BCG, Biocircular Green Economy. So biocircular green economy is actually that really is the circular economy, to make circular economy more sustainable. Now you can't do just bio, or you can't just do circular. You got to have the two in order to be green. To be green, you got to ensure your carbon footprint is as low as possible, and it's
I'm
really
sorry, Lerwen, which ministry was that under?
This is already it's driven by the Prime Minister's office, all the ministry, all the ministry. This is really a cross-ministry effort.
Yeah.
Now, Industry 4.0, Thailand 4.0 has been around, and it's the policies there, and Ministry of Industry. Now they're yet to see the connection. So what I'm actually trying to do on the ground here. So I'm actually doing. So I'm a foreigner, you know. I'm trying to be the catalyst here. So I now talk to the Ministry of Industry and the Ministry of Education and Science and Innovation, which is the ministry that funded our Accelerator initially, so to put them together. So I'm actually proposed the synergy between Industry 4.0 and BCG. And so this is something that I, in the process of putting a program together, I hope they can fund it. I want to set up a center of excellence on that and working.
Yeah, okay. Are you seeing much in this Eastern Economic Corridor Initiative, EEC?
Yes. EEC is actually, a lot of universities are involved in that as well. Of course, the biotech, they're always going to, Thailand is very strong in biotech. Thailand is very strong in robotics, and now also very strong in AI. And now the biotech is really critical because there's a lot of investment already in biotech. Now, circular economy is emerging there, the BCG, the whole BCG. So biotech now is sort of like, BCG is the extension of the original biotech initiative. So they are building infrastructure, but keep in mind, we're still in early stage, okay? So that's, like I said, we build the policy, we help with the policy framework, we make our recommendations, and they're yet to implement that. So we will see through this whole process with them together. So that's what we are doing on the ground to help. Yeah.
So I have another question for you, and this may wind up being the final question for the formal session of the program. But how do you keep going? What do you think will be a milestone for you looking ahead that will tell you you've really generated some results? These are huge problems. The problem with the environment and so forth is so massive.
So I really need help in terms of partnership. I think there's not short of leadership. I think that there's really, I think the partnership aspect is really critical in driving us forward. And in Thailand, of course, there's a lot going on the ground. There's always events. Every single day, there's numerous events, seminars going on. But there's not enough, well, I call it focus in actually getting the business forward. Now, as an educator as well as an entrepreneur, I'm trying to get more people to really understand what is really the fundamental solution and what is the real problem that we're dealing with. We're not scratching the surface. We're not doing greenwashing. I think this is something that's really critical. That's why I think education is so important, to really guide people to focus on the real problems. And also to empower each individual, all of us, we can do it by reducing some consumption, by choosing the right product to consume. We have a choice. And for example, okay, should we eat organic vegetable or non-organic? It's your health choice, right? But at the same time, your health choice also support the community of organic farmers. So if we can become more and more aware of our consumption, the impact of our consumption, and that will help us drive change at the same time. So I find that individual empowerment is critical. So all my team members now, everyone has their own personal cup. So they stop using reusable, disposable plastic. And so this is really the impact that we create. I don't measure, I think in the past, we always measure success by how much money you have raised or how much money you can spend, right? It's about spending, right? But I think that has to change. I think this whole mindset of success, the whole mindset of also criteria of impact has to change. I mean, I every single day, I keep going because I see that somebody's life is better, or somebody's improving in my neighborhood, in my team, and an extension of that in my community, in KX, the Knowledge Exchange Center. And so you see, it's really an extension of yourself and your ideas and your practice to the world. So I see it's like that's like, I think that's what keeps me going every day, is to see the impact that as a result of my effort.
Lerwen, I think that's an inspiring message that we can use to end this entire series on entrepreneurship. This is a great message to wrap up the entire series with. And I want to thank you so much for that. We're going to stay online for those of you who can continue in a more kind of informal mode. But first, please join me in thanking Lerwen for an absolutely great presentation that really is something we've got to think about with you 100%. Thank you so much, and we'll work on these partnerships. So we'll call it into the formal program for now. Everyone who's a student, please make sure you fill out the evaluation of the course. We'd appreciate that. And we'll see you in the fall with a series on new directions in mobility. We're calling it Asia Moves Forward in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So hope to see you in our fall seminars, and have a very good time between now and then. Please stay safe and healthy, everybody.